Let it be said that the New York Times is free to run whatever content it so desires. That includes editorial cartoons that almost everyone in their right mind would recognize as making use of anti-Semitic tropes, including this one of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a dog, complete with de rigueur elongated nose. Now, granted, it is staggering that in 2019 such a cartoon would run in an American as opposed to an Arab newspaper or a Berlin paper circa 1933, because depicting Jews as animals has long been the bailiwick of anti-Semites, both then and now. And in addition to dogs, the animal of choice is typically an octopus or spider or rodent. The more vile, the better. Alas, it looks like the New York Times is suffering from a bit of a backlash because the paper recently published an apology for the cartoon. I use air quotes for around the word apology because I'm not entirely sure that what they served up was an apology. You be the judge, for here it is verbatim. A political cartoon in the international print edition of the New York Times on Thursday included anti-Semitic tropes depicting the Prime Minister of Israel as a guide dog with the Star of David collar leading the President of the United States, shown wearing a skull cap. The image was offensive and it was an error of judgment to publish it. It was provided by the New York Times News Service and Syndicate, which has since deleted it. Now, folks, call me a nitpicker if you must, but shouldn't any half-hearted apology include the word, what is that word again? Oh yeah, sorry. So really, methinks the Times should apologize for the apology, because that's no apology they ran the other day, more like a statement of buyer's remorse. As for the unspoken strategy of publishing this cartoon, maybe the Times originally thought it was, being brave and daring and edgy. Like when the Times published those infamous Danish Mohammed cartoons a while back. Oops, I forgot. The New York Times took a pass on that one, like most of the mainstream media, even though those cartoons became a legitimate news story as they were used as an excuse by Islamist thugs to carry out carnage and even murder. And gee, distasteful or not, wouldn't you as the reader want to see what sort of cartoon was generating such mindless insanity? That is the nub of the story, isn't it? That a silly illustration had the power to make certain folk go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But as we all know, Islam is special, so there shall be no doodles in the New York Times mocking Mr. Muhammad or Mr. Allah. No, sir. Oh, and another thing, it's not as though the New York Times hasn't dabbled in anti-Semitism before, or at least Holocaust denial. After all, check out the Times coverage of the Holocaust, an act of whitewashing far worse than publishing a dumb cartoon. In the 2006 book Buried by the Times, author Lauren Leff notes how very few stories about the Holocaust ever made it onto the front page of the New York Times between 1939 and 1945, when the Holocaust was actually taking place. Only 26 times did Holocaust stories make it to page 1 of the Times, and in only 6 of those stories were Jews mentioned as the predominant victim group, even though the publisher of the Times during this period was a Jew himself. How shameful, how disgraceful is that? And this is the so-called paper of record. This is the newspaper that employs the motto, all the news that's fit to print. Could have fooled me. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, the Rebel has a new app. Please download that app and take the Rebel with you wherever you go.